Hi, and welcome to a special edition of The Signal.
We're at the Nova Scotia Museum of Natural History.
This place is a childhood favorite of many people across the region, including several staff here at The Signal.
We've got a busy show for you today with the guest appearance from a reptile resident of the museum. But first, we're here with Jeff Gray, museum manager, who has some fresh news.
Jeff, can you tell us a bit about the Monsters of the Abyss exhibit?
So the museum is very excited. We are posting Monsters of the Abyss. It is a look at undersea predators from ancient dinosaur times all the way up to today. It will feature large dinosaur skeletons as well as live animals.
And how did this exhibit come to be, Jeff?
It is organized by Little Ray's Reptile Zoo in partnership with the Van Buren Aquarium and other partners as well. It is a traveling exhibit, and it will be the only visit here in Atlantic Canada.
Amazing.
What can visitors expect to see in this new exhibition?
For the most part, I think most people will be excited to see full-size skeletons of dinosaurs, including a Spinosaurus, which we know from talking to visitors is a highly regarded and anticipated dinosaur to see. And I think for a lot of people, live animals will be interesting as well. It's a beautiful exhibit, has beautiful signage, and is all backlit and very dramatic. But obviously, live animals and dinosaurs are hard to beat.
We hear that there's a second exhibit set to open in the spring. Can you tell us anything about that?
So we are really excited to be working on a new permanent exhibit at Jalasi. This exhibit looks at Mi'kmaq culture, and it's something we've been working on with our Mi'kmaq advisory group. It is being developed by community, and we are just the keepers of this exhibit. It will feature everything from a modern look at where Mi'kmaq culture is today, but include pieces from the museum's collection of archaeology as well.
Incredible.
Great.
It's exciting. We're very excited to have this. It's not often that you get to build new permanent exhibits, so we're quite excited to have that join the museum's collection on March 7th.
Sounds like we'll have to be here March 7th.
We'll come back for that.
That's great.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff.
No, thank you for coming.
We'll hear more about that exhibit now. Jack Sponigal spoke with a curator earlier this week.
Welcome to the Museum of Natural History. My name's Kayla. I am the curator of Mi'kmaq Cultural Heritage here at the museum. The new Mi'kmaq gallery that's opening on March 6th, that has been in the works for the last 5 to 10 years. I've been part of the Mi'kmaq Advisory Group, which is a group of Mi'kmaq community members who have overseen the entire process from its conception. That opens on March 6th. It really creates an environment where people can engage with Mi'kmaq culture from the past as well as contemporary examples of Mi'kmaq culture, get a really good idea of who the Mi'kmaq are and what's important to them, and it's all from a Mi'kmaq perspective as well. There's going to be a lot of cultural belongings, there's going to be a lot of histories, and there's going to be a lot of highlighting of different ceremonies and different cultural practices, as well as examples of contemporary artwork and historical artifacts that have been in our collection.
One of the museum's current exhibits is the Marine Gallery, where we're standing right now.
Jack was given a tour. Let's see.
Hi, my name is Danielle. I am an interpretation assistant here at the Museum of Natural History in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and right now we are in our Marine Gallery. So the Marine Gallery covers all sorts of topics to do with the ocean, particularly highlighting a lot of our coastal environments as well as Sable Island. Right, so this here is our Sable Island Research Station. It's supposed to give you an idea of the kind of work that they would be doing on Sable Island, some of the equipment that they might be using. Over here, we've got a little feature on some of the older residents who used to live on Sable Island. This is about the maritime walruses. We've got a bit on their tusks, a few of the skulls here. So there aren't maritime walruses on Sable Island any longer, but we still get their bones washing up from time to time. So one of the most interesting residents in any ocean environment is sharks. People always love learning about sharks. They're a really cool animal. One of the most popular parts of our marine gallery is the tide tank. So the tide tank highlights coastal environments here in Nova Scotia by featuring a bunch of different animals that you can find in these coastal areas. Another big part of our marine gallery is our gully boat. So the gully boat is highlighting a marine protected zone here in Nova Scotia, known as the Gully. And it gives you an idea of what it's like to actually be on a research boat researching these marine environments. One thing that visitors always have fun with here in the Marine Gallery is that when you look up, we've got a bunch of to-scale models of some of our marine animals. So one of the most popular would be our sei whale up right at the top. Again, these are all to-scale animals, so the size that you're seeing on the ceiling here is how big they would be in real life.
Now to our final stop on our museum tour.
We sent Jack to the Forest Gallery to check out one last exhibit before we leave.
Hi folks, my name's Tessa. I'm one of the naturalist interpreters here at the Museum of Natural History in Nova Scotia. All of the species that we have on showcase here are species that are native to Nova Scotia. We have a combination of live animals, taxidermized specimens, and models as well that I'm excited to show you. Join me on a tour of our forest gallery. So over here we have our bullfrogs. These are American bullfrogs. They're the largest frogs we have in Nova Scotia. They will eat anything. They often try to eat me when I do feed them. Over here we have our salamander display. So these two species are several species of salamanders that we have here in Nova Scotia. They are both part of the same family of Ambystoma. So we have the yellow spotted salamander and the blue spotted salamander. We have 5 garter snakes currently on display here in our museum. They are all males. None of the species of snake in Nova Scotia are harmful to humans, but garter snakes do have a very mild venom. The female garter snakes get to be very, very large. They're the largest species of snake that we have here in Nova Scotia. We are here at our observation beehive. So all of the bees that you see behind me are honeybees. This is just one of over 200 species of bees that we have here in Nova Scotia. Honeybees are not actually native to Nova Scotia. They were brought over from Europe in the 1600s. Our honeybees choose to stay here. They have a bee highway that they can use to exit and come into the museum whenever they choose.
We're here now with a living legend, Gus the Gopher Tortoise, and his handler, Heather McKinnon. Heather, can you tell us a bit about how Gus came to the museum?
Well, in the 1940s, the museum director at the time went down to Florida and he purchased Gus for $5 at the Ross Allen Reptile Institute in Silver Springs. He also purchased an indigo snake and an alligator. Well, we don't have those anymore, but we still have Gus.
Yeah, so the average life expectancy, I understand, is about 60 to 80 years for a tortoise like Gus. But he's 102, so how do you explain that?
Well, he's living in captivity. So animals in captivity tend to live longer because, of course, he doesn't have any predators. And also he is not exposed to other tortoises. So things that can be passed between tortoises he wouldn't get. But there's also like he's getting, nutritious diet. He has veterinary care. So he's able to live a lot longer.
Right. Interesting. And we understand that you woke Gus up a little extra early today. His usual wake-up time is around 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Well, especially in the winter, because he has to, being a turtle, he's cold-blooded, or so he gets his heat from the environment. So he has to warm up to move, just like we have to warm up to move. But of course, we can warm ourselves up.
Right.
So he's been under his light for a while. So he was sleeping in his house. So he's under his light to kind of get going. So, but he seems to not really have a problem with that right now because he just walked away.
And can you tell us what a typical day would look like for Gus?
A typical day. So usually Gus is in his house. Usually sometimes he sleeps in, especially in the winter. And then usually around the afternoon he starts getting active and maybe under his light. And at 3 o'clock every day he comes out and he goes out for a walk. And we give him something to eat. And we also offer him a glass of water. You might notice when we're downstairs in the enclosure, he doesn't have a water dish and a food dish in his enclosure. You may have noticed that. And let's be clear, Gus is fed by hand. He doesn't eat out of a dish. He won't eat food out of a dish. And he actually doesn't drink out of a dish. So we actually offer him a glass of water. And he gets fed by hand. So he's very spoiled that way.
Very sophisticated. So what are visitors' favorite thing about Gus? Why are they drawn to Gus to come to the museum?
I think I mean, Gus is kind of sometimes the first exotic animal that a child will encounter. And also he's very still and quiet. He's not really like, threatening. He just moves fast. So he's kind of welcoming that way. So they feel safe. So I think that's part of the appeal. But also the fact that Gus has been here for so long that we now have great grandparents and grandparents taking their grandchildren to the museum and showing them Gus and saying, when I was a child, I came to the museum and saw Gus. So that's part of the longevity of Gus as well. Yeah.
He's been around. He's been a long time.
Yeah, he's been a fixture. So
Thank you so much, Heather.
oh, you're welcome.
Now, on to some of the top stories here in Halifax. It was a close vote at Halifax Regional Council. They voted against the plan to redo the Windsor Street Exchange. The mayor is not happy about it. Gabrielle Drapeau reports.
The motion fails.
After 2 hours of discussion, Halifax Regional Council voted 6-8 against the Windsor Street Exchange project.
What we have is a project that's just grown 5 times the cost. We're getting a hat loaf on what we need to do transportation-wise.
City staff had been working on their plans for 6 years to add dedicated truck and transit lanes, wider sidewalks further from the road, and bike lanes. It was all to reduce congestion at one of the biggest interchanges in Halifax. But the plan was not big enough for the deciding voters on council. Councillors Sean Cleary and Jean Saint-Amand voiced immediate concern with the scope of the project.
So we're going to spend tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars. And we're not even going to achieve what we told staff several times now in the last 6 years we wanted this project.
We're missing some of the pieces that council, my colleagues and prior colleagues have identified as priorities. And if we don't have that built in, it feels like we're going against the grain of this notion that if we're going to build it right.
The Windsor Street Exchange is one of 5 major access points into Halifax. Between 90 and 110,000 vehicles pass through it every day. The plan that was voted down would have taken 3 years and $150 million to complete.
There's no reason to delay. This is essentially a phased plan that we are presented today, and phasing makes sense. We can move forward with significant improvements that don't need to wait for a perfect design with all the lanes that we need at this time. We could move ahead with significant improvements today.
Council may revisit this motion at a later date, but for now, traffic will be moving in the same old patterns through the Windsor Street Exchange. For The Signal, I'm Gabrielle Drapeau.
Walking in Halifax can be dangerous at times. This week, pedestrians voiced their concerns to The Signal about road safety.
And a Halifax councillor detailed her plans for street safety. Kendra Gannon reports.
The city reported a slight drop in pedestrian collisions between 2022 and 2023, but people we spoke to said more needs to be done to keep pedestrians safe in 2025.
From my 3 months on the job, there's been 3 pedestrians killed, 2 in my district, 1 in Dartmouth, and also a cyclist hit with a dooring incident. So that's really concerning to me.
We spoke to folks walking on Spring Garden Road to find out what concerns they have with road safety in Halifax.
Pedestrians kind of cross whenever they want. As a driver, I'm always ugh, because people will kind of just cross whenever because the roads aren't super busy. I find in comparison to Toronto, I feel like people cross at the crosswalks. I think something as a driver in Halifax that's kind of confusing is the lane situation. I find whenever new people come to the city and they start driving, they're I don't know what lane to go into.
Another pedestrian says bad drivers put pedestrians in danger.
Pedestrian safety to me is to be able to walk, around the city without getting run over I see cars driving through red lights. I see them speeding up to drive through red lights. And I see some really bad practices with a lot of drivers. And I don't know how a lot of them still keep their license.
Councillor White says road design needs to change.
We need to have a good option for people to choose something other than driving, and then we'll have fewer cars on the road. Since World War II, and even before that, we've designed for car movement in our infrastructure. That's been our number one priority, and we're trying to change that by putting pedestrians first, then people rolling, cycling, then transit, then car share, then the personal vehicle. So that's a hard thing to change after 80 years of design. So It's a lot about kind of culture and design. Yeah.
Councillor White says she has ideas and plans to keep pedestrians safe in 2025. One of which is asking the province to change the crosswalk signs from white to yellow so drivers and pedestrians can see the signs in the snow. Kendra Gannon, The Signal, Halifax.
People who follow Canadian politics are asking a big question. Will we have an early federal election?
Mark Pirro hit the streets of Halifax to ask voters if they want to go to the polls before October.
Canada is due for an election this October, but with a minority government, an election could be called at any time. I'm here in downtown Halifax to ask voters if they think an election should be called early.
Yeah, I would support an early election. I feel like he's been in office long enough. Why not do something early and have someone new in there?
I'm not a huge politics guy, but I just like some certainty and like an established person. So whoever that is, I'd just like to get it over with,
Just based on the political state of the world right now in Canada and how everything's going, I feel like that's what the Canadians want.
Yes, I'd say so. With him, I know that he's stepping down in March to be replaced, so I think to have an election for who our Prime Minister is prior to that would be good.
Well, it's clear that the people of Halifax want to make their voices heard as early as possible. Mark Pirro, The Signal, Halifax.
Thanks for watching The Signal from the Nova Scotia Museum of Natural History. I'm Joe Van Wonderen.
And I'm Laura Flight. For more news from Kings, follow The Signal on YouTube or go to signalhfx.ca. See you next week.